This story is called The Ice and the Light Above. The dogs are settled. It took a little while, it always does. When the sleds stopped and the harnesses came off and the lines were staked into the snow, there was a period of movement, of circling, of each dog finding the particular patch of ground it wanted and turning on it once, twice, before lowering itself with a kind of decisive finality. Now they are still. 12 of them, arranged in loose clusters of 2 and 3 across the snow, their thick fur raised slightly against the cold, their breathing slow and visible, small plumes rising from each muzzle into the air above and dispersing. Some of them sleep already. Others rest with their heads on their paws, eyes open a little, watching nothing in particular, letting the stillness of the camp settle through them the way the cold settles through everything here, completely and without hurry. The camp is a simple thing. 2 sleds pulled up beside each other, their runners sunk slightly into the crust. Between them, a low shelter, canvas over a frame, weighted at the edges with snow blocks cut from the surface nearby. Inside it, a sleeping bag unrolled over an insulating mat. A small stove that has already done its work for the evening. A tin mug with the last warmth of tea still fading from its sides. The shelter is not large. It does not need to be. Warmth here is a function of smallness, of surfaces close together, of minimizing everything the cold can reach. Outside the shelter, the snow extends in every direction without interruption. In the darkness, and it is a full darkness, a darkness without the interference of any human light for a very long distance in any direction. In the darkness, the snow is not black. It has its own faint luminosity, as snow always does, as though it holds in its surface some portion of every light that has ever fallen on it, and gives it back slowly, imperceptibly, just enough to suggest the ground and the horizon and the shallow depressions where the wind has worked at the surface. The land is flat here, or nearly flat. A coastal plain running back from the frozen sea, treeless, featureless, in the way of places that the ice has had to itself for long enough to simplify everything. A ridge of pressure ice is visible to the north, low and irregular against the sky, its jagged tops the only break in the long line where land meets dark. The cold is serious. It is not the cold of a winter evening in a temperate city, not the cold that sends you inside for a coat and then passes. This is a cold that has intention, that reaches into everything, that finds the gap between collar and hat and the exposed inch of wrist between glove and sleeve, and works there steadily. The air is still tonight, which helps. Wind would make this a different situation entirely. But tonight the air is not moving, and in its stillness the cold is simply a fact of the place. The temperature that the Arctic holds at this hour, in this season, as a matter of course. You breathe it carefully, not deeply at first. The lungs need a moment to adjust to air this cold, to accept it without protest. Then it becomes normal, the way things become normal here, by repetition, by the body's quiet adaptability, by the simple fact that this is the air there is and the body knows what to do with it. The nearest dog, the lead dog, a large male with a grey and white coat that is very thick across the shoulders, shifts slightly, resting his head on his paws. His eyes are half open. He looks, without urgency, toward the horizon to the northwest, where something is beginning. It starts as a suggestion, a faint brightening along the lower sky, a greenish luminosity that might, at first, be mistaken for the eyes adjusting, for some optical consequence of staring into darkness. But it is not that. It is real, and it is growing, and within a minute or two it has resolved into something unmistakable. A band of pale green light lying across the sky from northwest to east, low and soft and very still, as though it has been placed there with care and is waiting to see what it will become. The aurora. It holds its initial shape for a while, that low green band, steady, not dramatic. Then slowly it begins to move. The movement is not like anything else that moves. It is not the movement of water or fire or cloud. It is something more like the movement of a very large and very slow breath, a rippling that travels along the band from one end to the other, a brightening and dimming that moves in waves, as though the light is alive in some way that light usually is not. The green deepens in places and fades in others, and where it deepens it takes on, at the edges, the faintest suggestion of other colours. Rose-violet at the upper margin, pale yellow-white where the intensity is greatest. Several of the dogs are watching it now, not with any agitation, simply with their eyes open and directed upward, the way animals sometimes attend to large things in the sky, with a calm that may be indifference, or maybe a kind of recognition that is older than language. The band rises. Over the course of perhaps 20 minutes it climbs higher in the sky, and as it does it changes shape, the single band breaking into curtains, long vertical folds of light that hang from some invisible point far above, and sway with a slowness that seems to require great patience to watch, and rewards it. Each curtain is slightly different in its colour, slightly different in its brightness. Some are narrow and very green, almost sharp at their edges. Others are broader, more diffuse, fading at their margins into the dark sky gradually enough that you cannot say exactly where the light ends. The stars are still there, beyond and between the curtains. The aurora does not replace them. It layers over them, in front of them, the two kinds of light occupying different depths of the same sky. Where the aurora is faint, the stars show through it clearly, their steady points unchanged by the moving light in front of them. Where it is bright, the stars are dimmed but not extinguished, still present, still themselves. The temperature has not changed. The cold presses in the same way it has all evening, steady and complete. But the quality of the darkness has transformed entirely. The snow is green lit now, the curtains of light above casting something onto the surface below. Nothing resembling warmth, but colour, the particular cold green of the aurora falling across the white and making it briefly extraordinary. The shadows of the sleds are faintly green. The dogs in their resting positions are touched with it along their backs, their raised fur catching the light from above the way fur catches any light, each hair separately. The lead dog has not moved. His half-open eyes reflect, very faintly, the shifting green of the sky. Inside the shelter, the stove has given up the last of its warmth to the air, which has given it up in turn to the cold outside, as warmth always does here, moving outward through every surface toward the enormous cold that surrounds the small warm things people make against it. The sleeping bag is its own warmth now, a closed system, holding the heat of the body that is inside it, the way the body knows to hold it, efficiently, with long practice. The aurora continues its slow transformation overhead. The curtains have risen further, are nearly overhead now, their lower edges hanging somewhere that feels close, though it is not. 60, 80 kilometers above the surface, the charged particles of the solar wind meeting the upper atmosphere and giving their energy as light. The physics of it are extraordinary, though the physics are not what the eye finds. The eye finds the curtains themselves, the movement in them, the way the light breathes and shifts and occasionally flares, a sudden brightening along one section of a curtain, a deepening of the green to something almost turquoise, a pulse that travels from one end of the display to the other and then fades. A fox crosses the edge of the camp some distance off. Its coat is white, its movement quick and light across the crust, its paws barely sinking. It pauses and looks towards the dogs, assessing, and then continues on its route across the snow and is gone into the dark beyond the aurora's reach. One of the dogs lifted its head at the movement, and now lowers it again, satisfied that whatever it was requires nothing. The display overhead has reached its fullest extent. The whole sky from north to south is involved in it now. Not uniformly, but in the way of something organic, something that has its own logic of intensity and direction. There are places where the light is concentrated into bright, narrow bands that move quickly, almost flickering. There are places where it is broad and soft and barely present. And there are places where two curtains overlap, where their colours mix into something briefly more complex, the green and the rose-violet finding each other and making, for a moment, a pale white that is not quite any colour and is somehow all of them. The dogs sleep on, or rest on, their breathing slow and regular under this sky that is doing everything it is doing, completely indifferent to their rest and not disturbing it. The cold settles. The snow holds its green light. Time passes in the way that time passes in places like this, not marked by anything, not measured by the usual signals. The aurora does not care about time. It moves according to the solar wind and the geometry of the magnetic field, and nothing else. And these things have their own schedule that bears no relationship to the schedule of anything on the ground. One of the curtains, the broadest one, that has been hanging more or less overhead for the past half hour, dims slowly. It does not go out, it simply becomes less, the green fading toward a paleness, and then towards something barely distinguishable from the dark sky around it. The stars in that portion of the sky become visible again, steady and unchanged. Other curtains remain, lower toward the northern horizon now, as though the display is returning to where it began, settling back down toward the edge of the world. The lead dog exhales, the plume rises and disperses. The northern curtain is still there, that low green band that started everything, back near the horizon, quieter now, holding its light without the earlier movement. It lies across the lower sky with a steadiness that feels like the closing of something, a return to a simpler state. The snow is white again, mostly. The green is almost gone from it. The stars are as they were. The dogs breathe, all 12 of them, in the particular rhythm of animals deeply rested, their bodies conserving warmth, their sleep untroubled by the cold, or the light, or the silence. The sleds stand in the snow. The canvas shelter holds its small, dark interior. The northern light lies low across the horizon, steady and faint and patient, the last of it softening into the dark sky above it by degrees so gradual they cannot be followed, only noticed when you look away and look back, and it is a little less than it was. And then it is simply the sky again, the stars, the dark, the snow receiving the starlight in its faint and luminous way, the cold, the stillness. The lead dog closes his eyes.